Hey guys, welcome to the Gods Unchained beta with the TheProfesserf. Alright, here's our Monday Mythic meta for the Ranked Weekend event that ran on March 5th, 6th, and 7th. Before we jump into our meta report, just wanted to call out this amazing graph. Take a look at this, guys. So this is the number of unique players on the left, the red numbers and the red line, and on the right side is the number of matches, and these are per day. So the blue is the number of matches per day. So last weekend, Gods Unchained experienced its first moon event, going from about 1,000 unique players to 7,000. Along with more players, this resulted in more matches per day. This past weekend event, which is towards the right side of the graph here, we can see that the player base sustained around 7,000 and also had about over 25,000 matches per day. You can see a little dip right here. That was probably around midday Friday to Friday night, and that was because the servers were just overloaded with so many players and so many matches, everybody trying to get their ranked weekend event in. Overall, the team responded very well. They provided communication and updates. They even put in some fixes to get the players back into the game. So for all the new players that just joined the game and are staying and playing, welcome. We're glad to see that you're enjoying the game. You're playing a lot of matches and trying out the weekend ranked event. Definitely looking forward to each one of you staying and helping this game grow even more. So for the many new players out there that may not be familiar with the Mythic Meta Report, I put together a weekly recap, usually on Mondays, of the past ranked weekend event to showcase which decks performed the best, had the most wins, which gods were the most popular, and which decks the players are using. So let's get right to it. All right, so here's our top weekend ranked results, our top 20 players, and our top 10 cutoff. One thing to notice is that it took 23 wins to secure a spot in the top 10. There are several players here with 22 wins, and until the official results are published this Wednesday, we don't know which of these players made it into the top 10 for those last 3 spots. As of right now, these players are sorted by their MMR rating, but due to the server issues over the weekend, we're not quite sure if this is accurate. So the top 7 spots are fairly secured, and the last 3 spots remain to be seen. So this just goes to show you how competitive it is now. 22 wins doesn't even guarantee a spot in the top 10. So for our top 20 list, we have these 6 players with 21 wins. And on the following page, another 8 players with 21 wins. So 14 players with 21 wins. Yours truly here snuck in at the 17th spot. We'll see what happens when the official results are published. So given the top 20 list of players that we saw in the previous slide, we can see that 9 players of the top 20 used the magic. We have 4 players that used nature. For light and war, 3 players each. We had 1 player in the top 20 that used death, and we did not have a top 20 player that used deception. So with each god, we can see that the best magic deck won 24 games out of 25. The best nature deck also won 24 out of 25 games. Light and war came in with both 23 wins. The best death deck finished with 22 wins. And as I mentioned, there was no deception player in the top 20. So let's dive into these decks that were used for this ranked weekend event. For the 24 wins magic deck, everyone should be familiar with this by now. This is our control ramp magic deck. We have an early game that consists of minions, removal, and ramp that transitions to Astric Implosion to clear the opponent's board. Follow that up with double Demogorgon, and you finish them off with Cersei, Frey, Avatar of Magic, and even Echaphon. Our best nature deck had 24 wins. This one's a more aggressive version that takes advantage of natures with its great stats for their creatures, but also with the ability to be able to go wide quickly with best friends, cheap minions like Marshwalker, Card Shark, and Bladefly. This deck includes buffs like Firewine, Sing Song Satyr, and a surprise finisher with 1 charging Oryx. Our best war deck finished with 23 wins. This one's an enraged war aggro deck. This deck focuses on fighting for the board early on. You have strong removals with blitzing creatures like Tavern Brawler, Vanguard Axewoman, Respected Jarl. You have sticky minions like the Master Tactician and Pyramid Warden. You have buff creatures like Shield Bearer and Trial Spirit to help out your other creatures maintain control of the board. So for this past ranked weekend event, I ran a similar version, but mine was a free-to-play version. The basic idea was pretty much the same. Fight for the board early and use your buffs and weapons to maintain control of the board. The main difference is that the free-to-play version obviously doesn't have any Genesis cards, and there's only one card from the Trial of the Gods expansion, the Commander's Gladius. That's 1 copy and it's a common. Everything else in the deck, 99% of the deck, is core and welcome cards. Do keep in mind that when you go to free-to-play version, you're giving up some win rate percentages here, as I average about 82%, and the Genesis version was about 88%. Obviously factor in player skill as well. The best light deck had 23 wins. This is the fairly standard light mid-range deck. It's a mid-range deck but plays quite aggressively. You have your early weapons, early minions, then you transition to Highborn Knight and Canonize, and you have your finishing touch with Isadora, Asterius. On the right side, we have a 22-win light deck that does not include Genesis cards. So this light deck plays similar to the Genesis version, except this one's slightly more aggressive with a lower curve. As you can see, this one has 14 1-mana creatures, and this one only has 10. So it has a slightly lower curve and does not include any 5-mana creatures. This non-Genesis version is mostly composed of core and welcome cards. There are a couple of Trial of the Gods cards, like Olympian Guard and Isadora. But everything else, everyone should have with their core and welcome cards. So one thing to point out, the non-Genesis version sports an 80% win rate, while the Genesis version sports an 84.4% win rate. Our best death deck finished with 22 wins. This one is the Soulburn Heal deck. You play cheap minions to gain control of the board early, and you have cards like Soul Jar and Demonic Offering to help produce a wide board. You have card draw, V-Rock, Untold Greed, and you have your healing like Return to the Cave and Fleshbind. And you also have your finisher with Neferu, where you could play that multiple times to clear the board and do direct damage to the opponent. As I mentioned, there was no Deception deck that finished in the top 20. Alright, taking a quick look at the meta for the last 3 days. We have Magic continuing its dominance. 55% overall total win rate, positive against all other gods. Death has moved up with an over 50% win rate, with positive matchups versus Light, Deception, and War. Nature hangs on, also with a positive win rate of 50%, also against Light, Deception, and War. I'm not quite sure why Light's win rate has dropped to less than 50%. The deck remains the same, but what I think happened is a lot of the better players jumped over to Magic, and with that player skill lacking, Light's win rate dropped. Alright, so that's our Monday Mythic meta for our ranked weekend event. Again, welcome to all the new players, and hopefully you guys had a great experience during your ranked weekend event. Although there was some server issues, you probably experienced how responsive the Gods Unchained team was in making sure that they fixed all the problems. So congratulations to our top players, and good luck on your packs.